Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about channel current events. And for those of you who like these videos, please remember to click like down below. And as I said last night in something I put on the community tab, I'm really not interested in creating argument videos with other channels. I had tons of people say, Jason, you have to address this quarter squat thing. Like, okay, I can address quarter squats without throwing the name of the channel that covered this in the title, without going and watching their video, without creating an argument against them. Because I think what people need to remember, I just don't want to do that anymore. Furthermore, even if I throw the name of another channel up there, even for a positive discussion, it creates animosity, it creates negativity, it creates hate. Because you have to remember, anyone who follows a channel, oftentimes they almost view their favorite YouTuber as almost a superhero type figure of authority. And that means if you disagree with anything they say, they freak out. It becomes problematic, and they're not going to listen anyways. And let's be realistic here. Most of the YouTube fitness channels that are out here, people who have built a base already are not watching them. Okay, and let's be honest. And I know that from my own fans who've come over from some of these other places and said, look, I bought this person or that person's program, and that would include the actual person, uh, who made the quarter squat video. And they said that the program was horrible. I didn't make gains. I was still a noob after running it for 6 months. And that's what you would expect. Because again, a lot of this stuff is style over substance. And a lot of these guys don't understand the actual process of getting strong. They don't understand the true process of getting strong. And so people will eventually leave these channels anyways. There are a lot of the channels out there that have a big following. Big following, and it is styles like, look how aesthetic I am, look how good I look. No matter what else they're trying to promote it being about, they're attracting novice lifters who have no size, no strength, no experience. Because people who have done these things know better. They see what these people are promoting generally and they laugh and they know better. They know it's not going to work. At least for anyone with remotely serious strength goals. Okay, it's just not going to work. And so people who do decide they have these goals, when they don't get progress, they'll drift away from there. Now, they might drift away from YouTube completely, and eventually a lot of them drift over to the different channels like mine and other places. And I mean, I have clients who it's exactly what they did. They bought programs from some of these people, didn't make the progress they wanted. And so then they hired me as a coach after they started watching my stuff for 6 months or a year and started making progress off of it. So it's just not necessary to do that, guys. I can focus on the good information without picking fights and attracting people's followers and having to argue with them and ban them and everything else. It's not necessary to knock other people down for me to put out good information. Let's just put out good information. So this whole topic came up, and people were saying, well, there's some discussion and studies showing that they can be good for basketball players. And it's like, guys, that's context specific. Um, I'm aware of those studies, but I'm also aware that there's other data showing that there are things even better than quarter squats. Um, Me personally, I would never recommend, and I don't think any really good strength conditioning coach is going to prescribe a bunch of quarter squats to basketball players to improve their jumping. And I'm not saying the studies out there that looked at jumping ability didn't find that quarter squats produced slightly better jumping results than full squats did. Okay? Because they did. But we need a context specific thing for that of saying, well, are there other exercises that would beat the quarter squat? And is the quarter squat a good exercise for us to be doing in general? Probably. It probably isn't. And you guys know my stance on that. And I'll jump in a minute to what other exercises would probably be better for someone who needs to jump. Because they're looking at specific joint angles. They're looking at joint angle specificity because you don't drop into a full squat when you jump. Right? We don't drop into a full squat when we jump. But generally speaking, we know that more leg strength is created by doing a longer range of motion. But the argument could be made that certain parts of the quad and the hip and things aren't utilized to the same degree from a jump because you're only from a partial squat position when you jump. Right? Even if you do a standing broad jump or a vertical leap or anything else, you're usually not dropping into a full squat, so why do we care about that muscular development? Well, that does matter for other performance elements. But I think the problem here is that if we start promoting things like quarter squats, we run back into the issue of that's how people get hurt. When we talk about squats themselves being dangerous, it is partial squats that usually cause the knee problems that people have. When people complain out there that they have developed a knee problem or hurt their knees squatting, 95% of the time it is from doing partial squats. You know, we've covered in the past why. We know why that causes it, right? We know why that happens. It has to do with using weights that exceed your 1 rep max, because most of us can quarter squat way more than our 1 rep max for up to 8 reps, right? So if your max squat is 300 pounds, you might be able to quarter squat 400 pounds for 8 to 10 reps. And it has to do with the fact that we are bringing the weight to a halt at the point where there's the most shear on the knee joint with a weight that we would never normally expose the knee joint to. Okay, and it's on the eccentric. It's when we reverse the eccentric reps. So when people bring up, well, what about deadlifts? We're starting from a concentric place, and we already have the knees in a position to where the knees are pulled back. Okay, because by virtue of the way the bar has to travel, you can't have knee slide. The bar can't go through the knees. So we're not concerned about that same situation with something like a deadlift. So it's just a bad idea to do quarter squats. Now we come over to the point, well, what about if we want jump performance? Well, here's what I would ask you. Why is it that they're looking at? They're looking at things like rate of force production, particularly rate of force production in the quads. Well, aren't there other exercises that exceed the quarter squat for rate of force production in the lower body? Yeah, there are. Of course there are. How about the push press? Okay, before we started looking at a lot of the more dynamic effort stuff that's out there, there are also studies that found that the push press created greater rate of force production in the quads than just about any squat that they had tested at the time. Okay, and it makes sense if you look at what you're doing with these jumps and you look at a push press and you look at the knee angles involved. It's like, oh yeah, it makes sense. So a lot of coaches out there over the years have prescribed push press for athletes who need to jump, and then we also get the added benefit of overhead pressing. So I mean, realistically, if you talk about for, say, a basketball player, push press would probably be a better choice than a quarter squat. And a lot of strength coaches out there would agree with that. But what else are we looking at? What else do we have? Well, what about anything that increases explosiveness? Let's come over and look at the data on rate of force production with squats. What form of squat has been found in the laboratory to have the highest rate of force production? The box squat. Okay? The box squat has the highest rate of force production. When we do dynamic effort work for athletes, we use the box squat. And frequently we use it with accommodating resistance like bands and chains. Now, if you want to develop explosiveness in your lower body, and many coaches have figured this out, this trickled over out of powerlifting and other places and has gone into MMA, into football, into boxing, dynamic effort work, particularly against chains, and even more so with bands, right? Doing speed squats, speed pulls against bands is going to give you a tremendous rate of force production. So if we want to start using movements that are going to teach you how to jump or teach you how to sprint better or kick harder, okay, because we develop those attributes in the body and we also make it even more hip dominant so that you learn to use your hips and glutes and everything else through this stuff. Speed squats off of a box against bands. All right, that would be dramatically superior. Well, let's also look at what else we have for specificity. How about jumps themselves? How about plyo box work? Okay, so I mean, realistically, people can talk about quarter squats all they want, but if someone comes to you and they're an athlete and they are looking to get more powerful, more explosive, increase jumping ability, are you really and truly going to stand around having them do quarter squats? Probably. I would hope not. Not with what we have in terms of modern knowledge of these things. No, you're going to have them do speed box squats against bands for dynamic work. We're going to do speed sumo pulls. Now people are saying, well, why that? Well, because again, we learn it trains us to have that lateral ability because of the wider stance and even loading on both sides. And same thing we get out of the wider stance box squat with just as much quad activation. Okay, we're going to do stuff like that. You're going to do plyo box jumps, weighted jumps, right? Yeah, of course you are. Of course you are. We have to be realistic. So when we're talking about using different tools for a job, it doesn't matter that you found a study that for one attribute found that one goofball exercise outperformed a more conventional exercise when we have other stuff that is commonly used in the real strength and conditioning world, not just what the YouTubers are promoting, but the real strength and conditioning world, that is far more established. It produces more profound results. So why wouldn't we use the appropriate tools, right? Use the right tool for the job. Use the right tool for the job. Do what works for yourself and for your athletes. This shouldn't be that difficult of a concept to understand. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.